So you thought your mandatory military service would involve defending the motherland from actual threats? Well, congratulations. You're about to become a Sarbaz, which is Farsi for you're about to spend 2 years wondering why your government keeps picking fights with countries that have really good air forces. You arrive at your base, thinking military service means learning useful skills and serving your country. Maybe some engineering projects, disaster relief, or actual defense activities. Oh, sweet naive child. Within approximately 4.2 seconds, you realize your primary job is standing around looking military, while commanders explain why a country with a GDP smaller than Florida needs to threaten Israel, America, Saudi Arabia, and most of Europe simultaneously. Apparently, this is called strategic thinking. The first lesson as a Sarbaz. You're now part of the world's most expensive anger management program, except instead of managing anger, you're supposed to project it toward countries that could turn your entire military into a parking lot before your morning tea gets cold. As a Sarbaz, you'll spend hours marching in formation, which is great for propaganda videos, but less useful when Israeli F-35s can see you from 3 countries away. There's something deeply philosophical about practicing military parades, and your enemies can program a computer to solve your entire division, while someone in Tel Aviv eats lunch. Your daily routine involves maintaining equipment that was cutting edge when your father was your age.
American technology is too complicated,
Commanders say, patting a truck that predates the internet.
Our simple equipment cannot be hacked by enemy cyber warfare.
This is technically true. It's hard to hack something that doesn't have computers. Your political officers will explain Iran's conflict with Israel with the enthusiasm of someone describing their hobby that's slowly bankrupting them.
The Zionist entity will begin, making Israel sound like an alien invasion rather than a country that's been there since your grandfather was young. Represents an existential threat to the Islamic world.
You'll nod politely while thinking, didn't they just win like 6 Nobel Prizes this decade? Here's the beautiful part. Iran has spent 45 years and half its GDP building proxy forces to fight Israel, while Israel spent the same time becoming one of the world's most advanced militaries. It's like training really hard for chess, while your opponent quietly becomes a grandmaster.
We don't need to fight them directly.
Commanders explain.
We have Hezbollah, Hamas, and various Syrian groups. It's like having a professional sports team, except instead of winning games, they occasionally disrupt Israeli dinner plans.
Iran's axis of resistance sounds dramatic, until you realize it's mostly groups that Israel has defeated multiple times, but with better funding and matching t-shirts. You'll learn about Iran's greatest achievement, spending billions to surround Israel with enemies, only to discover this motivated Israel to become extremely good at fighting multiple enemies simultaneously. It's like a very expensive lesson in unintended consequences. Hezbollah gets the biggest budget because they're the most professional Iranian proxy. Professional means they lasted more than 6 days in their last war with Israel, which is apparently the gold standard. The beautiful irony, Iran's proxy strategy has united Israel with Arab countries that spent decades hating each other. Nothing brings people together like a neighbor who funds terrorism while chanting "Death to America" at rallies. Your nuclear briefings are masterpieces of creative writing. We're enriching uranium to 60% for civilian purposes, commanders explain with straight faces. For medical isotopes, power generation, and definitely not for weapons to threaten the Zionist entity we constantly say we want to destroy. Iran's nuclear program has achieved something remarkable. It convinced Arab nations that Israel is less dangerous than Iran. Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Bahrain all decided doing business with Israel beats listening to Iranian lectures about resistance. Your commanders call the nuclear program a deterrent, which is polite for, we're hoping nuclear weapons will make people stop laughing at our conventional military. If you're unlucky, you might serve during Iran's response operations, like April 2024's True Promise, where Iran launched 300-plus drones and missiles at Israel. This was Iran's big moment, the first direct attack on Israel in decades. Finally, commanders said,
we'll show the world our power.
What Iran showed was that it could spend millions on a coordinated attack that achieved the same results as an aggressive fireworks display. Israel shot down 99% of incoming projectiles, while Iranian drones flew around the Middle East like lost tourists looking for GPS signals. The operation was so telegraphed that Israel had time to coordinate with Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and even France to shoot down Iranian projectiles. Nothing says regional influence like having your neighbors help your enemies defend against your attack. The most expensive part was probably fuel costs for drones that spent half the night circling Jordan, possibly asking for directions. Your commanders explained the aftermath with impressive creativity.
We successfully demonstrated Iranian resolve while avoiding unnecessary escalation.
Translation: we fired everything we had and accomplished nothing, but at least we didn't start World War III. The follow-up briefings were masterpieces of...
The enemy was forced to expend expensive interceptor missiles.
They noted proudly, ignoring that Iran had just spent its entire regional deterrent capability to force Israel to have a slightly more expensive Tuesday. Commanders called this a measured response that achieved strategic objectives, which is Iranian military speak for, we spent our missile budget to break some windows and crater an empty field. Iran's military technology is like a museum titled, "What Happens When You Isolate Yourself for 45 Years." You'll operate equipment that was impressive when your parents were young, facing enemies with technology that seems like science fiction. The Shah had won 3-6 kamikaze drones are Iran's big achievement, flying mopeds with explosives, mass-produced like carpets. The strategy is overwhelming defenses with quantity, like defeating a chess master by flipping the board. This works great until you realize Israel's Iron Dome was designed for exactly this attack, and every shot-down drone gives Israeli engineers free samples to improve their defenses. Your salary as a Sarbaz equals what an Israeli soldier spends on coffee monthly. This gives clear perspective on the conflict's economic dynamics. Iran's relationship with Israel follows a predictable pattern. Iran does something provocative. Israel responds with precision. Iran announces decisive response. Proxies launch rockets. Israel destroys launchers. Iran claims victory, promises more responses. Repeat indefinitely. As a Sarbaz, you get to participate in this cycle while pretending it makes strategic sense. Your role is mostly looking serious during briefings, where commanders explain why Iran's latest response is actually brilliant chess that will definitely work this time. The escalation mathematics are particularly fascinating. Iran launches 300 missiles and drones, achieves minimal damage, then acts surprised when Israel responds by precisely destroying Iranian military assets, worth 10 times more than the original attack cost.
We have successfully drawn the enemy into our trap.
Commanders will explain after Israel destroys another Iranian facility. The trap apparently involves Iran losing expensive military equipment, while Israel gains valuable target practice. When Israeli jets violate Iranian airspace to bomb targets, your air defenses make impressive radar contact with empty sky.
We detected enemy aircraft, and they left quickly.
They don't mention the aircraft left after finishing their bombing mission, or that Iran's air defense systems have the impressive ability to track aircraft without actually hitting them. The media coverage of these exchanges is equally entertaining. Iranian news will report Tutsi successful resistance operations, while carefully not mentioning what got blown up in response. It's like reporting sports scores, but only mentioning your team's attempts, not the final result. Iran spends $16 billion annually on military activities, with much going to proxies and nuclear program. Israel's entire defense budget is $24 billion, spent on functional equipment and technology that works. Sanctions don't help. Iran's economy is like a car running on fumes while the driver hits the accelerator. Commanders explain sanctions make Iran stronger through self-reliance, which is why everything important gets imported through shell companies. Iran's media strategy has convinced much of the world that it's the victim in a conflict where Iran openly calls for destroying another country while funding terrorists. It will appear in propaganda videos showing Iranian strength, popular among people who've never seen modern military equipment. The videos show determined Iranian forces operating museum pieces, like making action movies with historical props. Commanders explain information. Warfare is more important than actual warfare, which is convenient since Iran is better at making videos than winning conflicts. The best part about being a Sarbaz? You didn't volunteer. Iran's conscription means every young man experiences serving in a military designed to project power Iran doesn't have. You'll serve alongside equally confused conscripts, wondering why Iran fights Israel, America, Saudi Arabia, and occasionally France simultaneously. Most are more interested in completing service than liberating Jerusalem. This creates unique military culture, where everyone professionally looks fierce, while privately hoping cooler heads prevail, and nobody actually fights anyone. The conscription system itself is fascinating. Iran needs soldiers to look intimidating in parades and propaganda videos, but not so many that they actually expect to win fights against professional militaries. It's like being cast as an extra in an action movie, where the plot doesn't make sense. Your fellow conscripts come from all over Iran, bringing diverse perspectives on why your government's foreign policy seems designed by people who've never heard of cost-benefit analysis. The Tehran guys wonder why Iran can't just make money selling oil like normal countries. The rural conscripts ask why anyone cares about Jerusalem when Iranian villages need infrastructure. Nobody has good answers, but everyone agrees that standing in formation while commanders explain geopolitical strategy is preferable to actually implementing that strategy. The beautiful thing about conscription is that it ensures Iran's military is staffed primarily by people who didn't choose to be there and aren't particularly enthusiastic about fighting regional wars. This is probably a feature, not a bug. Professional volunteer armies might ask inconvenient questions about mission objectives. Congratulations, Sarbaz. You're now part of a conflict described as everything from the battle for the Middle East soul to the world's most expensive temper tantrum. Iran spent 45 years and hundreds of billions building a strategy to threaten Israel, only discovering that threatening Israel motivated Israel to become extremely good at neutralizing threats. The most impressive thing about Iran's anti-Israel strategy is its consistency. For nearly half a century, Iranian leadership has maintained the same approach. Fund proxies, build missiles, threaten destruction, act surprised when Israel gets better at defense, then double down on the same strategy. It's like watching someone play the same failing lottery numbers for decades, while insisting they have a system. Your service as a Sarbaz represents the human cost of this strategic stubbornness. Thousands of young Iranian men spend 2 years of their lives training for conflicts that serve no Iranian national interest, supporting proxy forces that achieve nothing except giving Israel target practice. The opportunity cost is staggering. Iran could have built world-class universities, infrastructure, and technology sectors with the money spent on Hezbollah's rocket inventory. Instead, Iranian engineering talent gets diverted into building drones that mostly serve to advertise Israeli air defense capabilities. Years from now, when you're civilian again, you'll watch news of Iran's latest retaliation and remember being part of a military that spent more time explaining victories than achieving them. You'll wonder what Iran might have accomplished if it had spent 45 years competing economically instead of militarily with a country that's demonstrably better at military competition. A real tragedy. Iran could have been a prosperous, respected regional power if it had spent 45 years building schools and hospitals instead of proxy militias, but that would require admitting the revolution might have been more about revenge than justice.